Hey everybody, good evening. This is Random Observer here with another video at last. It's been a while since the last one, and I'm just doing this a bit spontaneously. A distinct look from the car here. Anyway, just to say, obviously in the next few days, quite an important event will be taking place. The funeral for Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, and it is a very sad occasion. Now, of course, there's a lot of talk. Such a seismic shift as this is a major event. It is the end of the Elizabethan era, as commentators have said. Question, of course, is then what comes next. Now, of course, some people have said, well, this is the time to abolish feudalism and the monarchy and so on and so forth. And in some ways, it would seem that with obviously constitutional democracies, people may ask, well, then why do we have a monarchy? Why do we have an inheritance? Why do we have feudalism? Cars going by, excuse me. Okay, but the answer is, the thing is, I believe that if the monarchy were to be banned or discontinued, people would have to invent it. And the reason I say that, for the same reason, think about this, that people loved Downton Abbey. Why was that such a global phenomenon? Why did everybody obsessively follow the Kardashian family? Why is it that people cannot get enough of celebrity culture and gossip and so on, that kind of thing? And the reason is very simple. Because people love status. Anyway, that is a universal human condition and need, I would say. And that is not going to change. Case in point, I was told in history class, Napoleon Bonaparte, when he came to power, he apparently tried to abolish the aristocracy. But as he found, of course, that was very hard to do, because the reason why there is an aristocracy is because, of course, people like their lands and titles. In other words, they like their status. Hence, the reason for an aristocracy. And people will say, well, we've done away with that now. We don't have one. Don't we? They go by another name. Nowadays, we call them celebrities. They are basically the same thing. They are individuals with a huge amount of power and influence who either have fortunes, the equivalent of castles and lands. They might not have castles nowadays, but they have mansions. Same kind of thing. They have massive fortunes. They have huge influence over the people and the government, if they wanted to. Collectively, they certainly could do. So yes, in every sense of the word, they are an aristocracy. Now, some people may say, well, okay, well, why don't we just, what about communism? What about countries where there's no monarchy at all, where they abolished the monarchy and they had a communist state? Okay, what about them? Well, okay, then let's look at a few. North Korea. What happened there? Well, let's see. The president, I believe it's the president is the ruler's name. Anyway, what was it? Kim Il-sung then passed over leadership to his son, Kim Jong-il, and of course, Kim Jong-un, I think it is the current leader. Anyway, so basically, they had a line of a line of inheritance, shall we say? In other words, you might say that North Korea is a monarchy in all but name, as it's clearly hereditary now. It's not just, technically speaking, the system should be greater than any one person, but it's not. And the same goes for, well, people would say, well, okay, well then what about Maoist China, for example? Well, yes, what about Maoist China? Okay, yes, they overthrew the imperial China, but what did they replace it with? Well, they didn't have religion. They had Maoism, which was the religion. They didn't have a holy book, or did they? They had Mao's Red Book, which was the holy book, because everyone was reading it and everyone was basing their values on it exactly the same way. So, in a sense, and of course, Mao was almost a divine deity, shall we say. He is given almost divine status as the ultimate ruler. So yes, the emperor in all but name. And again, and you look at the current situation in the world, exactly the same thing. President Xi is emperor of China in all but name. Let's face it, he has absolute power and has an indefinite rule in all but name. We know this. Same thing with President Putin. He has been the Tsar of Russia in all but name for the past 20 years, at least I remember when he came to power, and he's not gone away. And it's the same thing. Oh, yes, well, these countries, We can just abolish monarchy, we can just abolish aristocracy, etc. But the question is, what do you replace it with? Because it just seems, looking at all these examples and all of these different places everywhere in the world, there just seems to be this inherent need for status, for a class of people with status of some kind, regardless of how equal you make a society. The fact is, as George Orwell says, all animals are equal. Some animals are more equal than others. Anyway, but there's always going to be people that you look up to for status, because people are aspirational by their nature. They want something more to aspire to. They want somebody to look up to. And there needs to be some kind of belief system. If you don't have an organized religion, then you've got to have something, an organized culture, or an organized aspirational dream that people aspire to. Example, the American dream of success, regardless of what your religion. That, in a sense, is a religion, you might say. So, and there's always going to be a deity. There's somebody that people would worship, in effect. Example, one author was saying, when Princess Diana passed away very sadly, she had almost divine status in people's eyes. The emotional effect that it had on people, it was that powerful. So I would say that there will always be a need for some kind of monarchy. Yes, I would say. Some kind of aristocracy, some kind of status, something to aspire to, some kind of religion, some kind of holy book, some kind of, not exactly ideology, but a belief system that people live by. Because that is the human condition. That's what we aspire to. That's what we want to do. Anyway, I hope that you will join me in giving thanks to our late Queen, Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, who has been an absolutely brilliant leader. Whatever you may say about her, she has led our country brilliantly. She's always been a great influence. And I will say, God save the King. Thanks all, and good night.